Guys, it is a good day because it is a day when we are going to be cracking out the Summa Theologica. I'm not sure, I don't think I've mentioned on this channel, one of my biggest influences is St. Thomas Aquinas. He is he's probably the person who's formed my intellectual landscape more than anybody else. He basically takes Aristotelian philosophy and baptizes it. That's what I've heard some people say. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. He was alive during the Middle Ages, like 1224 to 1274. He lived 50 years. Was extremely prolific, and it was around the time when they were like discovering a bunch of ancient Greek philosophy, like Aristotle especially. So he was sort of the most famous Christian person who integrated it with faith. But he also admired a lot a Jewish rabbi and a Muslim who were doing that with their faiths as well, and he often refers to them in the Summa. Anyways, so I'm cracking it out because my song this week is called Hopeless. And there are so many different directions that I could take it because this song has a lot of personal significance for me, like probably more so than most of my music, because I wrote that song. It was probably the first song that I ever wrote that felt like it was more spontaneous and less like when I write a song now, it's pretty much a ground up experience. I sort of get the inspiration for it and I just sort of let it come. Whereas like when I first started writing songs, it was very top down. It was like instead of starting with inspiration, I would like try to think up something that was clever or something that was like I really like put a lot of pressure on it coming out a certain way, and I judged my lyrics and music a lot more, so hardly anything ever made the cut, you know? But with this song in particular, I do remember that it just sort of came together and it felt more like inspiration and like spontaneous. So that was a really cool experience musically to write that song. And I remember when I first actually came up with the line like, if that makes me hopeless, I am, I guess. One thing's for certain, I hope less. I thought, oh, dang, like, that's pretty good. Like, I like that turn of phrase. I like the play on words there. But it wasn't forced. It just kind of happened. Whereas I might eventually post some of my songs where I was, like, trying to be clever and see what you guys think of it. But yeah, that's a little bit about the trajectory of my songwriting. But anyways, the song, I could take it a lot of different directions, talk about it in a lot of different ways, but the way that I'm gonna go about it is talk about just the virtue of hope, because I think basically what the point of the song is basically that there are some times when it's actually good to hope less, and there's kind of a twofold sense. It's like the point is, it's talking about a relationship where it's like I've gotten to a point in that relationship where it's like what I was hoping this relationship was gonna be, it's not. And so I'm hoping less in that sense. And then also there's sort of like a tinge of being jaded at the end of it as well. And so I'm not sure how it comes across to you when you hear it, but that's sort of the vibe that I have when I'm singing it. It's like, you know what? This situation isn't what I hoped that it would be, and it's not as though I'm entirely despairing. It's like if you want to call me hopeless for that, that's fine. But one thing's for certain, I hope less. You know, it's a very sort of just it's you know, when you go through a disappointment, it's that sense of being jaded. I suppose it's in a way the opposite of what I was saying last week about stay gold. You know, the idea of stay gold is not becoming super jaded and resentful and bitter when you experience a disappointment. Whereas this song is sort of leaning into that sense of, yeah, when things don't work out, especially because somebody's been malicious towards you, then yeah, it sort of does make you jaded sometimes, at least for a period of time. Hopefully you can come back from it and stay gold. Kind of like this book. I love how there's like gold leaf on it. This is a really great book. Thank you to my brother who gave it to me. He got a Latin copy, so he gave me his English one. It's like, he could have it. Like, I'll take it. Okay, anyway. So I'm going to talk about hope. And the way that St. Thomas Aquinas talks about hope is that it's sort of like you apprehend something as good for you, and that's like more of an intellectual thing. It's like you see something, you're like, oh, that's good for me, and that's intellectual, and that's where the virtue of faith comes in when it comes to God. And then there's hope, and the hope is the way that your will responds when you apprehend something as good. And so here's what it says. Secondly, the will is directed to this end, both as to the movement of intention, which tends to that end as something attainable. So what I want to highlight there is that, like, when you apprehend something as good intellectually, then your will is drawn toward it as an end. But it's only drawn towards it if it's attainable, right? If you think something's entirely unattainable, then you're not going to tend towards that end. You're just going to despair of it. So I like that he says that the will is directed to this end, both as to the movement of intention, which tends to that end as something attainable. So hope actually has to do with intention. That's really important. And then, so he says both when it comes to intention and as to a certain spiritual union, where the will is actually united to that end. So that's a different thing. The actual union, that has to do with love. That's charity or love. So it's like, by faith you apprehend God as good. By hope you attain to him as an end, or incline or tend towards him as the end in your will, because you believe that he's attainable. And then by love, you're actually, when you're actually united to God, you're united to him, and that's love or charity. So that's like when it comes to God. And so in that sense, you never want to hope less. You never want to despair, you know? I mean, you got to struggle with that sort of thing. But it's like, in that case, despair, bad. But Aquinas has a principle also that is basically like, I think the way that it goes is you never negate, rarely affirm, always distinguish. And so, never negate, you got some Justin Bieber vibes there, like, I will never say never. You know, you don't usually, there's very few things where you would just say, oh, if somebody makes a statement, you usually just don't say absolutely not. Things just aren't that simple. Then when it comes to affirm, he says rarely affirm. So there's some cases where you can affirm something, but it better be a nuanced statement, because the third principle is always distinguish. So I think that it's important when it comes to something like hope that you distinguish. So there's one distinction. When it comes to God, there's a distinction. You don't want to hope less. You don't want to stop hoping. You don't want to despair when it comes to God. and like believing that he has good things in store for you, believing that he loves you and cares for you, all of that. Very important to have hope in those areas. But then there are other areas where, maybe it's actually, maybe there's a healthy despair or a virtuous despair. I have a friend that made this point. He's a teacher and he actually specializes in Thomistic anthropology. And he talks about how, for himself, he thinks that he has a virtuous or a healthy despair about playing the fiddle, because he says, he would love to be like a world-class fiddler, and I love the way that he plays the fiddle. I think he's a very impressive fiddler. But he started when he was like basically later in life, and I mean, I've got nephews that play the fiddle. I'm from the Ottawa Valley, by the way, so there's a lot of like Irish and Scottish culture there, and lots of people play the fiddle. They're amazing fiddlers there. And so like I've got a nephew who is like 4 years old and he plays the fiddle, and most people who become world-class fiddlers start when they're 4. It's just kind of like, like anything, like Mozart or whatever with the piano. So anyways, my friend that's a teacher, he says he has a healthy despair that he's never going to be a world-class fiddler. And he thinks that it's a healthy despair because it's not like he needs to be a world-class fiddler, And I think that totally makes sense, in the sense that, like, if hope has to do with intention, and he doesn't think that he has the stuff of what it takes to become a world-class fiddler, then hoping to become a world-class fiddler means that his intentions are set on something that's not actually worth pursuing in his life, and so there's when it comes to intention, you kind of need to have realistic expectations in order to have appropriate intentions. So adjusting your expectations from being a world-class fiddler to playing fiddle as a hobby and at local events and having music nights and bringing tremendous joy and excitement and delight to people's lives, like that's a pretty good expectation change. And the thing is, he does that. He has music nights at his place, and he like can't get people to leave because they're having so much fun. And so if he was instead of having those music nights, just spending day after day, spending like 6 hours just practicing every single note, and anytime somebody comes over being like, sorry, I gotta practice, like that would be so unfortunate. He would be depriving the world of the gift of his fiddling in a way by pursuing something outside of by having a hope that isn't actually good, I mean, that's supposing that he couldn't be a world-class fiddler. I can't comment on, I trust that he knows himself and all that. I think he's a great fiddler, but I can't really distinguish between, a great fiddler and like an excellent world-class fiddler. I just don't have the ear for it. So I think that that's kind of the size of it, is that sometimes if you follow the sort of Thomistic virtue ethics perspective, which is what I tend to subscribe to, it's like, there's hope, and obviously hope is good, but it's only good if you make distinctions. It's good if your ultimate hope is set on God, and that the hope that you have for your life is commensurate with God's will for you, and so it's a really wonderful thing when your intentions incline you towards God and all the good things that he wants for you. And then there are some things that we want in life that aren't commensurate with God's will for us, and it's extremely painful to come to terms with that. I wanted to be Hillary Duff, and the thing is, I'm never going to be Hillary Duff, and a part of me is still working through that. She was so cool. but yeah, I mean, it's like, if you actually are able to change your expectations and set your intentions on what God really wants for you, then that's a freedom. That's a freedom to actually pursue what your life's meaning is. So whether it's a relationship like this song was about, or anything else, there's something to think about. I think that there's a healthy despair sometimes, and by embracing the healthy, virtuous despair, you're able to more fully cling to the most genuine hope that you have in your life. Whether you're like me and you believe that hope is God himself, and that you can actually attain to God, which is crazy, or if it's a more general thing about life, that it's like, just hoping that life is good and that there's meaning and goodness in the world, and that even if something has disappointed you, there is a real hope that you can cling to in this life. That's a good hope to have. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear. Do you agree with me? Is there a healthy despair? Let me know in the comments. Have a good week.